Backster began leaving plants connected to his polygraph without trying to do anything, just observing their reactions and then trying to figure out what might have caused them. One day he found a very strong reaction and eventually realized it happened right as he poured a pot of boiling water into the sink in his lab. Later tests revealed that his sink was loaded with bacteria, and when the bacteria suddenly died from the scalding hot water, the plant perceived a threat to its own well-being and screamed. Backster later designed an experiment to try to standardize this effect. He tried to think of the most expendable living creature he could find, and he chose brine shrimp, which are commonly used as fish food. He invented a machine that would dump the shrimp into boiling water at a random time. The plants did indeed react strongly as the shrimp died, but only if the experiment was done at night when no human beings were around in the lab. Otherwise, the plants seemed to lose interest in the shrimp. The energy fields from an average person were much stronger. Skeptics later attempted to repeat this experiment, but they did not follow Backster's protocols. As best we could determine, the people trying to replicate really didn't understand how to automate human consciousness out of an experiment. They thought you could go to the other side of a wall and watch the experiment unfold through closed-circuit television. That wall meant nothing as far as the plant-to-human attunement was concerned. This study was given a brief column-and-a-half write-up in Electrotechnology magazine, and a stunning 4,950 scientists wrote Backster to request more information. Then, on November 3, 1969, Backster demonstrated this effect at Yale University Linguistics School. An ivy leaf was plucked and connected to the polygraph. I then asked if they had any insects around that could be utilized for hopefully stimulating a plant reaction. The students captured a spider, which is actually an arachnid, as Backster points out. They put the spider on a table and had one guy surround it with his hands so it couldn't escape. The ivy leaf did not react during this time. But when he took his hands away, as the spider became conscious that it was able to run, you'd see a huge chart reaction just prior to its attempt to escape. This sequence was repeated several times. Backster soon appeared on numerous television shows to demonstrate this effect, including ones hosted by Johnny Carson, Art Linkletter, Merv Griffin, and David Frost. Frost asked Backster if his plant was male or female. Backster and his plant both had an amusing response to this rather personal question. I suggested he go over and lift up a leaf and take a peek. Before he even approached the plant, it showed a wild reaction, evoking a very amused reaction from the studio audience. Backster's results were replicated by Russian scientist V.N. Pushkin in 1972 using EEG instrumentation. People under hypnosis were brought into a powerful state of emotional stimulation, and a nearby geranium would have a strong reaction each time this occurred. Despite all these intriguing results, the scientific community was predictably severe in its criticism. Dr. Otto Salbrig of Harvard University's biology department was not amused. This is a waste of time. This work is not going to advance science very much. We know enough already about plants, so that when someone comes up with something like this, we say it's quackery. You might say we're prejudiced. Maybe we are. Yale professor Arthur Galtson was a little more polite, but still not supportive. I don't say Backster's phenomena are impossible. I just say there are enough other things of more value to work on. It's attractive to think that plants are listening to you, or that they respond to prayer, but there's nothing in it. There's no nervous system in a plant. There are no means by which sensation can be transferred. Others, like Stanford Research Institute's Dr. Hal Puthoff, were more encouraging. I don't regard Backster's work as quackery. The way he conducts his experiments is pretty good. It's not the sloppy thing that most people believe who think the work's no good. All of nature is in a constant conversation. Backster also connected yogurt bacteria, ordinary chicken eggs from his refrigerator, and even live human cells to his polygraph, and continued to get stunning results. Consistently, what he found was that every living thing is intimately attuned to its environment. When any stress, suffering, or death occurs, all the life forms in the surrounding area have an immediate electrical response, as if they all share the pain. Backster first got the idea to wire up chicken eggs when a philodendron plant had a strong reaction right as he cracked one open for breakfast. Even though he used conventional, non-fertilized eggs from the grocery store, Backster's electroded eggs displayed unexpected behavior, including patterns similar to a heartbeat on an EEG and complex cycles within cycles on an EKG. One of Backster's electroded eggs had a sudden shock when he picked up his Siamese cat Sam and startled him out of a deep sleep. Even more impressive is the graph of an electroded egg screaming each time its former neighbors are dropped into boiling water, one by one. This egg was kept inside a lead-lined box that screened out all electromagnetic fields. That meant this effect could not be due to any radio waves, microwaves, or other electromagnetic frequencies. Backster clearly understood the importance of shielding out electromagnetic fields in an experiment like this. At the suggestion of several scientists, and the physicists in particular, I later attempted to shield the smaller electroded plants from electromagnetic interference by using a copper screen cage, also known as a Faraday cage. The plants behaved as if the screen cage enclosure did not exist. Much later, I had the opportunity to confirm this using a state-of-the-art shielded room. I felt certain the information passing between plants, bacteria, insects, animals, and humans was not within the known electromagnetic frequencies, AM, FM, or any form of signal which could be shielded by ordinary means. Distance seemed to impose no limitation. I made observations that suggested that this signal could traverse dozens, even hundreds of miles. It seemed that the signal may not even fall within the electromagnetic spectrum. If not, this would certainly have profound implications. This is one of many such investigations that proved the source field is almost certainly not electromagnetic, EM. Every scientist knows EM waves cannot penetrate through lead-lined enclosures, copper-screened Faraday cages, and/or shielded rooms. Backster's experiments with human cells made his discovery far more personal. In these experiments, Backster would obtain living cells from someone's mouth by having him swish a little water around and spit it into a test tube. This tube was then whirled in a centrifuge, bringing the living white blood cells to the top, which Backster extracted with an eyedropper. The cells were then placed into a tiny 1 milliliter test tube and electroded with very thin gold wires. These living samples could survive this way for 10 to 12 hours, giving high-quality reactions the entire time. My favorite example of Backster's work with human cells was performed with NASA astronaut Dr. Brian O'Leary in 1988, who served on the faculties of Cornell University, California Institute of Technology, University of California, and Princeton University. O'Leary brought an ex-lady friend along to the lab, and apparently they had a strong argument, which provided ample opportunity for him to witness firsthand extremely high-quality chart reactions. O'Leary then left for the San Diego airport so he could fly back to Phoenix, Arizona, some 300 miles away. He synchronized watches with Backster, and his cells were monitored in the lab the entire time. It was previously agreed that Dr. O'Leary would keep an accurate log of events which might have caused him momentary anxiety. These included missing a turn on the freeway while returning his rental car to the airport, nearly missing his flight because of the long line at the ticket counter, his flight's departure and landing in Phoenix, his son's failure to meet him on time at the airport, and a number of other logged events. Later, when comparisons were made by transferring the logged events to the appropriate portions of the chart recording, there was a good correlation between chart reactions and nearly all of the perceived anxieties. His chart became very quiet after he returned home and retired for the evening. There is something out there, some energy field, that allows our thoughts to propagate through space, even over vast distances. The implications of this are stunning, particularly when you start to consider how it seems that every living thing in nature is listening to everything else. We are definitely not excluded from this process. I've lectured on this subject a number of times, and invariably the audience groans when they find out that vegetables, fruits, yogurt, eggs, and the living cells in raw meat are all screaming when they are cooked and or eaten. Even hardcore vegan, vegetarian raw foodists who consider themselves to be on a cruelty-free diet are now faced with the fact that the food they eat must go through measurable distress, at least from a human's perspective. Even if you do not cook your vegetables, your digestive activity still has a burning effect. Backster did tell me that if you pray over your food by sending it positive, loving thoughts, it then seems to accept its role in helping you stay alive, and these severe reactions no longer occur on the graph paper. Many cultures and spiritual traditions encourage us to thank our food. With Backster's research, we now see that this seemingly unimportant behavior, from a scientific standpoint, has a definite purpose in our new model.